My journey with music started at a young age. In many of the households I grew up in, there was always music playing in the background. I remember dancing and singing with many of my family members. When hearing specific artists, it brings forth those fond memories. Johnny Cash comes on, and I envision my grandpa. If I hear the Judds playing, it takes me back to seeing my grandma and my aunt dancing in the kitchen. The musical connection I have with my father always occurred on Saturdays when he would pick me up and we would play a guessing game on who could name the artist on the radio. So my love for Stevie Nicks and other music of the 70s came directly from him. The other cool experience I had in my journey, besides being a music interpreter, is being a mom and teaching my children about my favorite artist. And then in turn, them teaching me about their favorite artist. But as millennials, they exposed me to all these underground R&B and rap artists. So we were able to share our love for the music, culture, and great dancing skills, which I do contribute to my DNA passed on to them, which they would completely deny. How music has connected me to the deaf world happened well over 20 years ago. I would host parties at my house, and all my deaf and hard of hearing friends would come over, and we would take turns signing songs, dancing, acting a fool. But it always centered around music and signing. It was just part of our regular Friday night activities. Then one night, I was fortunate enough to go in and attend an event hosted by the San Antonio Deaf Dance Company. And it was at this performance I witnessed greatness that would change the way I saw music interpreting forever. I sat back and I watched these phenomenal dancers, the Wild Zappers, a deaf dance group, incorporate music with signs, and I knew that this is what signing music should look like when we were interpreting. I began utilizing these concepts based off of what I saw the Wild Zappers do and what my deaf friends said they wanted to see on stage. And I was able to do it and had been doing it year after year. It was awesome to see the request for music interpreting increase significantly during these times. And an interesting turn of events occurred. In the earlier part of my interpreting career, while I was working, I contracted spinal meningitis, which contributed to me losing 50% of my hearing, changing the trajectory of my life, not only shifting my identity, but strengthening my understanding of the deaf and hard of hearing world. I began to experience several of the same barriers to communication as my deaf and hard of hearing friends had experienced since birth. Then Lollapalooza happened. In 2013, I was interpreting Kendrick Lamar's set, and someone recorded me and posted it, and the video went viral. It was seen by millions of people. This changed quite a bit for me. I was able to use my platform to start educating and advocating for our community on the importance of access to entertainment and to tell the world very loud and clear that we deserve access and we should have access. But sadly, most of the comments in the comment section were always like, how can deaf people enjoy music? Why do deaf people go to concerts? They can't hear. So here's your answer.
So many deaf people love music. It's a big myth in the hearing world. They think that deaf people can't hear, so therefore they don't like music. They don't like the sound. That is actually not true. Many deaf people love music. That's a fact. It's more about the feel and the way you vibe. We're just like anyone else.
You asked me if a deaf person loves music. I would have to tell you, I am one of those people. I am an absolute fanatic when it comes to country music, like the incredible George Strait, Co Wetzel, Corey Morrow. I mean, the list goes on and on. I actually have a lot of music on my phone.
Deaf people love music. For myself as a deaf person, I've always loved music. There have been several deaf people that have come up to me over the years and have told me thank you for making music accessible. I've also met other deaf people in my life that music was not as important for them, but it wasn't until I got to the Rochester Institute of Technology that I met so many deaf people that love the music, and I've met so many more along the way.
So I challenge you to flip the script when it comes to access. When places and events are set up, many of us are not even considered in the planning. Hearing people don't have to worry about whether or not you can hear your favorite artist because speakers are automatically provided, but interpreters and captioning is often an afterthought or not even considered. Let's rewrite the story together. What if at events in planning stages, we made interpreters and closed captioning the same priority as speakers, microphones, and lighting? Obtaining interpreter services and captions should not fall on the shoulders of our community, but it does. It sometimes takes days, weeks, months, even years. I would love for each of y'all watching this to take a moment and put yourself in the shoes of these individuals and think about how motivated you would be to purchase a ticket if you had to go through this same thing.
I think the longest it took me was about a month and a half before I actually got an answer, after asking them repeatedly and them always giving me the runaround. It was really, really annoying.
How long did I have to fight to actually obtain interpreter services? I believe from the beginning request and the long process of me purchasing tickets after ticket to this brand new venue was about, say, 2 years before I was finally able to obtain interpreter services. And during those 2 years, friends, family, coworkers were able to attend up to almost 20 different events that I was not able to participate in.
Those were a few examples with the same narrative that occurs in our deaf and hard of hearing community. So I challenge us to rewrite the narrative. Here are a few places that we have started to see the change. My first trip abroad landed me in Norway. I hosted an intense music workshop for a group of interpreters. One of the interpreters was a deaf interpreter from Denmark. She explained her love for music and how she wanted to be a music interpreter, but she was told by hearing people that this was not possible. I assisted her in changing that narrative, and look at this incredible work. I then was invited to Switzerland. I hosted an event for the deaf community as well as for the hearing community to show them my work and also explain the importance of providing access to music. It was an incredible night. Then I was off to the Czech Republic, where I was invited to interpret on stage at a major music festival, and they told me that this was the first time that this had ever happened in the country. I was also asked to be a speaker at that same festival, and I was lucky enough to team up with a group called Hands Dance, which is a performing troupe of deaf and hearing interpreters. A year later, I was able to take my team of interpreters over to the Ukraine to teach music interpreting, and we provided an in-depth training to interpreters, as well as get them ready for a huge music festival that we would all be working. And in this process, I noticed that there were a couple deaf people who were just watching and observing the training. But they expressed that they wanted to also interpret music, but many had told them that it was not going to be possible. So I helped them rewrite their narrative, and I invited them to also work the music festival. The last country I went to before our world changed by the pandemic was Romania. Leading up to the festival, I was able to train the interpreters virtually for a few months prior to the actual event. I had also met a deaf person that wanted to be a part of this experience. She told me that many of her colleagues said deaf people cannot interpret music, and I emphatically disagreed with them. I showed the hearing interpreters several videos of deaf interpreters on my team that interpret at music events in the States. They were shocked, but it also helped them realize to not put limits on anyone. At the festival, I was able to bring one of the Ukrainian deaf interpreters to help assist and support the Romanian deaf interpreter. For the first time in her country, Elizabeta, a deaf interpreter, was on stage at a major music festival, and it was a historic experience for so many of us. There were over 200 deaf people in attendance. Rewriting the narrative can be challenging, but ensuring we are including all voices in the story will in fact promote a more equitable society. You are worthy of this, and I am too. We all are. We have the power to change the narrative, but this requires us to be open to the change, which I know can be uncomfortable, and that's okay.